Hello, it's good to see all of you here today. I'm Courtney Hudgins. I'm the superintendent at East Bernard ISD. I'm sincerely thankful that I did not have to follow Greg directly. I don't know that after he spoke there's anything left to say. You know, I didn't have the opportunity to spend a whole lot of time with Brandy, so I'm very thankful that I got to follow these two ladies that have already done an excellent job of capturing her, and I'll be among many today that are going to talk about both Jeremy and Brandy and their impact on people. Now, my staff knows I just go off the cuff. I really don't use scripts. And I'd like to think I'm going to be able to do that today, but I'm not entirely sure, so I do have some notes. Greg already said thank you, so I just want to take a minute. You hear the phrase, "You're in our thoughts and prayers" all the time. In fact, I think it's almost become cliche for some, but I'm going to tell you, when you're on the receiving end of that, you feel it and it's real. The outpouring of support has meant a lot this week to our community and the family, me personally. So thank you. All right, let's talk about Brandy. I gotta be honest, I told you I don't know her that well. I'm the boss, so I spent more time with Jeremy than I did Brandy, but I did get to have a few social engagements with her, and we were so excited to have Brandy in our school district. We tried to lure her over for 2 years, and I guess we just weren't convincing enough. I should have called you, Greg. But we finally had her here, and she was so excited to be in the school district that Jeremy was in and her boys had been for the last 2 years. I was super excited because I already knew she was a fantastic teacher. And as superintendents, we get really excited when we get really good teachers in our school districts. And she was only there 3 days. But as coincident would have it, I walked by her room the first day. I try to make the rounds to see everybody. There is no more joy than the first day of school for teachers. So I made the rounds. I just happened to go by her door, and I caught it at bell class dismissal. So kids were coming out, and they were laughing, and they said, "Oh, Miss Jenkins is going to be so fun." And I know you teachers in here are thinking like I am. Yeah, it's the first day. Of course she's still nice and fun. I'll ask her in October how that's going. I didn't know that story was going to come around full circle like a week later, but it did. Brandy had given her kids an assignment on day one, also something superintendents love, that you're already making kids work by day one. And she had them, she was a science teacher, and so the assignment was to observe and to investigate a project. The project was her, and she told her students, "I want you to observe me. I want you to observe this classroom and what you see, and then I want you to write down what you see." So they did, and there was a reflection piece, and it was assignments, and you know, I really hope Brandy got to read them. She had them stacked on her desk, organized by class, ready to be graded. I'm hoping she already read them and she already graded them, because these were the 4 themes that ran throughout all those kids' papers, and I know some of those kids may be here today. In 3 days, this is what they observed. She loves her boys. She is beautiful. She loves the Brahmas, and she loves flowers. You know, I didn't know her that well, but my little time with her, they were spot on. It's amazing what kids absorb in a short period of time. Her lesson plans were completely done for the next week. All of the copies were made. Everything was neat and perfectly laid out. She was going to be back Monday. She put as much time and love in her classroom as she did into her family. Being a mentor to many, I've heard a lot of wonderful stories this week about Brandy's impact on young kids, seeing kids that nobody else saw. She was a second mom to a special few and a loving wife and coach's wife's friend. All right, I know I'm on a time crunch, but I got to talk about Jeremy. I don't know why his was the hardest. I spent a ton of time with this guy. So when we started the quest for athletic director in Texas, who coaches football, it's a heavy task, especially in a town that prides itself on good quality football and athletics. So you go through the resumes and you look, where have they been? What programs are they a part of? What are their, what position coaches were they in those areas? Wins and losses. And we did, and that's how Jeremy got to the top of the pile. He checks all those boxes, y'all know that. But it wasn't that. And that's not why our community's crushed. It's because his mantra, and you've already heard it today, is what's best for kids. And that was evident in his interview. At the time, I didn't know if that was words, but it became evident in actions. Small towns don't like to change. Anybody in here from a small town? You know this, right? But Jeremy had a way to come in and push things in a good way for changes that needed to happen. People didn't get mad, they just followed his lead. He pushed for junior high programs to be stronger and have more support so our young kids would get the skill set and the mindset and the mental toughness, so when they got to him and the group at the high school, they were ready to go. He showed up at every sporting event, unless he was at another one or coaching one himself, but he'd also show up with a bus full of kids to go to the band marching contest. He'd show up at community fundraisers. Probably my favorite thing was seeing him shake his head at me and a lot of the staff when he'd do Friday walkthroughs and we had done something absolutely insanely crazy with what we wore or what we did. But he'd carry that coffee mug and take a couple sips and give us that wry smile and shake his head and go on, because I know he loved every minute of it. You'd see him perched on the steps of the high school with that same coffee mug, and to this day, I don't know why he didn't just get a tumbler. He'd drive that gator through town from the gym to the weight room to my office to the maintenance barn, and just so y'all know, this is not because he was going to have small talk, because Jeremy's not a talker. He was going around, he had to check all the things off on his list for that day, but he'd have that coffee mug sloshed in while he drove the gator. But he was perched out on the steps of the high school every morning greeting kids, talking to staff about the rundown for the week. It really wasn't often about sports or football. It's just what he had on his mind or was listening to what we had on ours. He was fiercely dedicated to excellence, yet somehow he did it with the quiet presence like Red talked about. I never got to see the hot Jeremy and Greg. I've heard it was in there. In fact, I'll make this story really short. Jeremy listed his brother as a job reference. And people are going, well, why would you call his brother? Well, Jeremy told me, he'll tell you the truth. So I did, and Greg did, and I still hired him. But he said, well, he's excellent, but he's hard on his assistant coaches, so you might have to remind him that at times. And I did a couple of times. But he was quiet in his presence, he had an open mind, and he had a willingness to work with anybody. Jeremy was what we call all in East Bernard. There's a lot of people speaking, and I know I'm over my minutes, so I'm going to wrap it up. None of us today will ever capture who these two people are in the words today. We're all heartbroken, but I'm so thankful. Sorry. I was doing good. That they came into our lives. And I promise we're going to take care of the boys. Maybe more than you want me to. And as we say in East Bernard, once a Brahma, always a Brahma.